the moon. Even in the daylight sky, she's an impressive sight. From the cavemen on, our nearest planetary neighbor has dominated the night sky, begging for study and observation. Look at that. Full moon tonight. Sometimes the moon seems so close that you could actually reach out and touch it. On this episode of The Last Wanderer of Mars, you will. A shiny bauble in the fall sky, our moon doesn't just play on our curiosity. It also piques our imagination. In the late 19th century, science fiction pioneers such as Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, and Edgar Rice Burroughs all envisioned journeys striving to touch the moon. And the first science fiction film ever made, all the way back in 1902, was called A Trip to the Moon. Based loosely on Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon, French director Georges Méliès' brave astronauts are loaded into a huge bullet and fired from a giant cannon at an unsuspecting moon. By the end of the 1940s, rocket ships had replaced Verne's Bullet Express, and with science fiction all the rage, it was inevitable that the moon would be a favorite destination at your local drive-in theater during the 50s and 60s. This is low-budget, bubblegum science fiction churned out for nearly nothing, fast enough to fill a weekly changing double bill. But as spectacular as the invaders of the drive-in could be, the real story of how we actually did get there outdazzles even the best science fiction.
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff, we have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
That journey actually began at a place like this. This is Launch Complex 34, built to accommodate Saturn I and Saturn 1B rockets. It hasn't been used since the launch of Apollo 7, and it stands today as a monument to the Apollo 1 tragedy and tribute to the astronauts who died there. This is where they launched the Apollos. I never thought in my life I'd be standing in the center of it, looking straight up. But just imagine what it was like when a Saturn rocket stood atop it. That is some impressive tailpipe, man. This is a Saturn V rocket.
So, if during a launch you could hold on right there, it's not the heat that would kill you. It would be the pressure.
Wow. The moon is around 240,000 miles away.
Yeah.
If you could get there driving a car at 60 miles an hour, it would take just under 6 months. The fastest flight to the moon on record was made by New Horizons. Flying at 20,000 miles per hour, the proverbial bat out of hell, it cruised past the moon only 8.5 hours after launch on its way to Pluto.
That was just the first stage, right?
That was stage 1. Welcome to stage 2.
Wow.
And this is an actual Saturn V rocket.
Using a Saturn V, it took astronauts about 3 days. But that's all relative. For now, let's see how long it takes just to walk from one end of the Saturn V to the other.
And it's the third stage.
First you have the altitude and what?
Yeah. And this is the capsule. That was a Saturn V rocket. It took almost 2 minutes to walk from the tail to the front. Almost 2 full minutes. Amazing.
And over to the left is our final destination. Let's go touch the moon.
Wow. Oh, man. Get to touch a piece of another planet. Wow.
This moon rock was collected by astronaut Jack Schmidt near Apollo 17 lunar module landing site.
A piece of the moon.
Unbelievable.
In 1972, the manned exploration of the moon ended with the flight of Apollo 17. One of its astronauts, geologist Harrison Schmitt, collected many moon rock samples, including the sliver on display at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex in Florida. 3 months after the return of Apollo 17, then-President Richard Nixon, in an effort to bolster his sagging public image, ordered the distribution, as gifts, of fragments of Schmidt's moon rocks to the governors of all 50 states and to 135 foreign heads of state as well. Set in lucite and mounted on plaques bearing states' and countries' flags, these were goodwill gifts. The rocks from outer space they contained, however, have a black market value of about $10 million. Currently, the whereabouts of only 60 of these are known.